Hi, Assalamualaikum and very good day. My name is Azharuddin Rashid and today we are going to present to you about laboratory of PHY150. There are 4 experiments in this video. The first one is Coulomb's law, the second one is capacitance, the third one is DC circuit, and the last one is magnetics. Let's continue with the first experiment. The objective of the experiment is to satisfy the Coulomb's law, and the second one is to study the parameter of the electric force, and the third one is to find the electric constant. For this experiment, the link is given for us to do the simulation about the experiment. The simulation shows as the picture in the slide. There are 2 parts of the experiment. For the part 1, we're gonna fix the charge first, and we have to change the distance between 2 charges between 3 cm until 10 cm to find the rate of distance and the electric force. Then, the data that we have, we should take to the table. For the part 2, we have to change the distance between 2 charges to 6 cm, and one of the charges is 5 microcoulomb. Then, the charge 2 will change as 3 microcoulomb until 10 microcoulomb to find electric force. From the part 1, result is shown in the graph electric force versus distance. We can see when the distance of 2 charges when increased, the electric force will be decreased. For the graph electric force versus rate of distance, we can see the higher rate of distance, the higher electric force. For the part 2, result as shown in the graph electric force versus charge. This graph shows when the charge increase, the electric force will be increased. For the discussion, the error that we can get in this experiment are misreading data on the measuring, and also when we make this experiment at face-to-face class, the high voltage as the terminal of supply can also cause leak current. The error that we can make when do online experiment are misclick on data on table and when make the graph. The precaution that we can do to avoid or lower the error are: make sure the reading scale is parallel to the object we conduct to take the exact amount of value of the experiment. We also can stand at a comfortable distance away from the balance in stacking measurement. We also can make sure that we transfer the correct data on the scale of the table when we plot the graph. For the conclusion that we can make from the experiment are the electric force between 2 charges is proportional the products of the charge and inversely proportional to the distance between 2 objects. The electric force can be decreased and increased depending on the while distance between 2 charges is constant. And that's all for me. Let's continue with the next presenter for the experiment 2.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Muqri Imran bin Zukri, and today I'm going to present the experiment number 2, which is capacitance. So the objective of the experiment have 3. The first one is to study the capacitance varies with the separation between the plates. Second, to study the capacitance varies with the area of the plates. And the last one, to study the dielectric effects on the stored charge, energy and voltage between the plates of the capacitor when it is connected or disconnected from the battery. Next, for the procedure. This experiment actually consists of 2 parts, which is part 1 is capacitance and part 2 is the effect of the dielectric on the capacitor. So as you can see the slide, this is the setup for the part 1 of the experiment. In this part, the dielectric was prepared, which is paper for the experiment. The dielectric was inserted completely inside the capacitor and the capacitance meter was checked. Initially, the values of the plates area, distance between the plates and corresponding capacitance was recorded. The plate was slowly increased and the corresponding capacitance was measured 4 more times. The result was recorded in the table. Then, the area was restored at initial and the separation between the plates was slowly decreased, and the corresponding capacitance was measured 4 more times. The result was recorded in the table along the reciprocal of the separation. This is the setup for the part 2 of the experiment. In this part, the values of the plates area and the plate separation was reverted to the original, and the dielectric was removed entirely from the capacitor. The voltmeter also was set up completely. The red electrode was connected on the plates with positive charge, and the black electrode was connected on the plate with negative charge. The battery also was turned on and connected with 1 voltage. The dielectric was slowly inserted inside the capacitor. While the dielectric was inserted slowly inside the capacitor, observation was made, and the values changes of capacitance, charge, voltage between plates, and energy stored by the capacitor were recorded. The dielectric was removed and the battery was disconnected. Lastly, step number 4 was repeated without the battery was connected. This is the data for part 1, and this is the data for part 2. Now we proceed to the discussion part. The result on part 1 that was recorded in the table was already plotted as a graph. There are 2 graphs, which are the first graph is the graph capacitance against area, and the second graph is graph capacitance against the reciprocal of the separation between the plates. For graph capacitance against area, in the slide, it shows that the capacitance is directly proportional to the area of the plates, and the graph shown that capacitance increased due to the area of the plate was increased. For graph capacitance against the reciprocal of the separation between the plates, it shows that the capacitance are directly proportional to the plates, and the graph shows that the capacitance increased due to the increase of the reciprocal of the separation between the plates. Actually, the separation between the plate is inversely proportional to the value of capacitance. The graph is directly proportional because in the graph we use 1 over D instead of D. For the result on part 2, it shows that when capacitor was connected to the battery capacitance, charge and energy stored by the capacitor increased after the dielectric slowly inserted in the capacitor. Only voltage between plate does not show any changes. This happened because when the dielectric was inserted into the capacitor, the electric field decreased and the capacitance was increased. Charge and the energy stored also increased because the capacitor is connected to the battery that able to store more charge and energy in the capacitor. Besides that, when capacitor was disconnected from the battery, it shows that the capacitance was increased but the voltage between plate and energy stored by the capacitor was decreased. The voltage remained unchanged. This is because when the dielectric was inserted into the capacitor, the electric field and the voltage was decreased but the capacitance is increased. The energy that is stored by the capacitor also decreased because the capacitor does work to pull the dielectric in between plates that reduce the stored energy. Next, there are some suggestion and improvement. The first for the experiment. The first one is take measurement 3 times and calculate the average to get the accurate result. Second, wear gloves and the hands are dry to avoid getting shocked. And the last one, the precaution step must be taken to avoid any unwanted accidents. Last one, we talk about conclusion. So the first one, the experiment ends for phase 1 was accomplished. In this experiment, the observers determined that the quantity of capacitance could be influenced by the area of the plates and the separation between the plates. This can be proved from the result that was obtained from the part 1 of the experiment. Next, the experiment ends for phase 2 also was accomplished, which is to identify the electric effect on the stored charge, energy and voltage between the capacitor plates when connected or disconnected from the battery. This also can be proved from the result that we obtained from the part 2 of the experiment. I think that's all from me. Thank you for watching.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Irfan bin Mustakim. I will be the person that explain the third voltage from the power.
Assalamualaikum and hi. So my name is Muhammad Haziq bin Zaidi, and as the last presenter, I'm going to share with you guys about an experiment named magnetism. So without wasting our time, let's get started. The objective of this experiment is to investigate electric field strength between magnet and electromagnet, to determine the electric field strength with a different number of loops, and the last one, to determine the electric field strength with a different amount of voltage. Okay, so now for the procedure, this experiment was divided into two, which are to calculate the magnetic field strength using field meter of bar magnet and electromagnet. Okay, for the bar magnet, the first step is the compass was moved around the bar magnet to determine their pole. Next, after we have figured out their pole, the field meter, the blue one, was placed at the north and south pole to measure the magnitude of field strength, and the observations were recorded. Meanwhile, for the electromagnet, to determine the pole, the compass was moved around the electromagnet. After the pole has been figured out, the field meter was placed 1 inch from the pole to measure the magnitude of the field strength when electromagnet has different loops of coil and different amount of voltage. Next, for the result, we can determine that the number of loops and voltage are directly proportional to the field strength. Based on the table 1 and table 2, we can clearly see that the higher number of loops, which is 4, has the higher number of field strength. Meanwhile, for table 2, the higher number of voltage, which is 10, produce the higher number of field strength. Okay, so now for the discussion of this experiment. From the errors, the magnetic fields between magnets superconducting are likely to be larger than conventional magnet. The second one, random position of magnet can affect their dipole, which means in the magnetic field, it can have multi-pole because of the position of the magnet is randomly places. For the precaution, first one, always handle the magnet with care because magnet is easily to break down. The second one, always wear gloves to avoid the magnet pinching. The third one, keep the magnet 20 meters away from any electronic devices. The last one, always wear safety goggles when handle a large magnet. For the conclusion, what is magnetism? Magnetism is the force that existed by magnet when they attract or repel between each other. Basically, the movement of electric charge induces the magnetism. Okay, from the experiment, we can conclude that voltage is directly proportional to the field strength. If voltage increases, then the field strength of the magnet will become larger. I think that's all from us. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Bye bye.